Okay, what's my age again? Death episode. Recording in 3, 2, 1.
Hey, guess what I found out the other day?
Mate, we're recording.
Yeah, I know, but I thought we were only on Spotify and Apple and shit. But I did a little googling, and it turns out that we're on places like iHeartRadio and Audible and Google and all sorts of things.
Oh yeah, I know. But why were you Googling us?
Well, I'm trying to impress a woman, obviously.
And how did that work out?
Hey, we're on YouTube too.
Yeah, I know. I put us there.
Yeah.
Anyway, while you've been trying to impress women with your little Google, I've been getting ready for this month's episode.
Oh, Mr. Professional. All right, then, let's get started.
3, 2, 1. This is me.
And this is me.
And welcome to
What's My Beer Again?
I thought we were doing age.
I thought we were doing beer.
I like beer because it is.
Oh, mate, we talked about this.
I probably wasn't paying attention.
You agreed we'd keep it as What's My Age Again, and we'd offshoot into beer and other topics of interest under the What's My Age Again banner.
Yes, that does sound like a well thought through plan of mine.
Mostly me, I think, you'll find.
Yeah, probably sounds about right. Okay, so what are we calling it again?
Hey, that's brilliant. What are we calling it again?
Yeah, nailed it. Let's go. What are we talking about?
Well, we did promise a few times last year during What's My Age Again that we were going to talk about death.
If we're talking about our ability to put podcasts together, I think we've nailed it.
Well, anyway, we alluded to death in the When Scott Turned 60 episode, and that was where you saw my existential angst.
Is that what it was?
Reach its ultimate. Yeah, it reached its peak. When I started to think a lot about my impending doom.
Yes, we did. We did threaten to talk about something about death, but we also talked about how to put it off with the idea of good eating, healthy living, and building a tiny brain in a petri dish.
Yep, and we also talked about eating enough fibre so you're not like a pup trying to pass a pineapple.
All right then, let's talk about death. Hey, can we still use the Psycho Stick song for What's My Beer?
No.
Can't.
I like beer because it is good. I drink beer because I should. If there was a song to sing, I sing it and beer you bring. I drink beer when I am sad, because the beer, it makes me glad. Now there's nothing left to say, so let's go drink beer.
What are you drinking, CJ?
I'm drinking a beer called Dances with Hops.
Okay. Does it have Kevin Costner in it?
Yes, it has small. That's why I chose it for today's death episode, because it's got small minced up parts of Kevin Costner. It's an American IPA from a brewery in Tasmania, and I will say that I chose this beer probably a greater than 70% chance because the brewery's name is Shambles, and I figured that was quite appropriate for our podcast. The other thing that I liked about it is when you go to their website, it's their tagline is "We love beer as much as you do." There's a $10 off your first order, and it's all you have to do is tell us your name and email address. We promise we won't spam you with useless stuff. Only cool beer releases and maybe some funny memes or cute cat pictures. And then it's got like name, email, subscribe, and at the bottom it's "I'm dead inside. I'll pass on the cute little kittens. Thanks."
Well, that seems fair.
Yeah. So it's 6.4%. It's not bad. It's less bitter than a normal IPA because it's an American IPA, but it's pretty good. Shout out to Shambles, which also apparently their brewery is an old butcher slaughtery thing. Not an abattoir, but where they used to kill things. And apparently the proper name for that is a Shambles.
Oh, I did not know
That's
that.
the name of the brewery. Yeah.
There you go. I'm drinking another Mountain Culture beer, but unlike my previous ones, which I've been drinking the mainstream Mountain Culture, this one's a limited release oat cream IPA called Making Excuses.
Well, you're not making excuses anymore.
Well, I'm not, because it was really good. It was a really, really nice beer. What I found, it did have quite a bit of residue in the bottom of the can, well, the bottom of the, after I poured it out to the glass, it was quite a bit of weird residue. But
or weird residue is known as sediment in the trade.
fair enough. A bit of sediment that looked a bit weird. It's a 6.5. It was creamy. It was for an IPA. It wasn't too sort of fruity. I quite enjoyed it.
Nice. I've paired my Shambles IPA with a Woodford Reserve double oaked bourbon because I figured, seeing we're talking about death, it's fuck it, why not?
Okay, so death. One reason for my meltdown when I turned 60 was the feeling that I'd stepped a whole lot closer towards my inevitable decline. And yeah, that was really what got me, I think. Have you ever felt that way when you hit a significant birthday?
No, it's more of an alcohol-related thing. I shouldn't have had that last one kind of situation.
Fair enough. But all I can say is, it didn't seem to me when 60 was significant because it didn't seem that long ago my parents were this age. I mean, I remember clearly my dad being 60 and talking about being a senior and being a bit pissed off at the whole idea. And they've been dead for 5 years. And it actually made me think it was kind of my turn up to bat. It's the circle of life, you know?
You're on the bench.
I'm on the bench waiting for it, you know? So anyway, well, when I turned 60, that was my existential crisis. I lived it out in a podcast.
That was a good decision.
It was a great decision. It really helped things, dwelling on it in such a way. So even though I'm feeling much better about it, I'm not being so death-focused, it's still a thing back there in my head.
Right. So you're not being death-focused aside from the insistent, what are we going to do an episode on death? I think we should do an episode on death. We're doing the death episode this week?
Well, there's that. Yes, okay, fair enough. Fair call. I think as time's gone on, and we talked about this when we were talking about changing life expectancies in a few episodes ago, but obviously if you're in your 60s now, it's a whole lot different to if you were in your 60s 100 years ago. 100 years ago, it would have been like, he was 61. He lived a good life. You die 61 now. Yeah, now it's he died too young. How terrible. And I suppose as technology and medicine continues, that will grow. Hey, it's 150. Oh, it was too young, you know, too soon, that kind of thing.
An interesting series of
statistics.
Thank you for you. So this is a fun way to kill an afternoon. No pun intended. When you look at the statistics, it's surprisingly hard to say, of deaths in Australia last year.
Mm-hmm.
So overall, 171,469 people died in Australia last year.
That's an odd statistic to have on top of your head.
It's because I'm committed to the level of research and professionalism of this podcast, as we've established in multiple occasions. Anyway.
In that case, carry on.
So I actually did some Excel formulaing.
Bloody hell.
I know, right? And in fact, I'll throw this open to you, and you two can play at home if you're listening.
Okay.
What percentage out of the
fingers on buzzers?
If you're in hospital, that works even better. You can involve your nurses too. Code Blue, Ward 3. Code Blue, Ward 3. No, I just thought I had the answer.
Playing this game.
So, what percentage of people above 50 do you reckon made up deaths in Australia last year?
Percentage. Okay. I would suggest 60%.
94.
Okay. But that I would have thought that, but I didn't want to say it because I figured I was going to go on the low side.
Right.
Only because of the way you said asked the question.
No, but okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, from above 60.
Above 60 who died.
Actually, maybe I need to do this the other way around. What percentage of people in Australia last year were over 100 that died?
1%?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, if I say, So, yeah, 1% is yes. How many people do you reckon that is? Because 1% sounds like fuck all.
Of the people who died, 180?
2,373.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Over 100. 2,373.
Jesus. Okay. I would
Yeah.
never have thought that.
Of which, if you break it down to male and female, 514 male, 1,859 females. So, because this could go on forever and be extraordinarily boring and very, very annoying for any nurses
Let's
in
cut
hospital.
to the chase here.
Yeah. So 1% over 100, between 95 and 99, 9%, 90 and above, 24%, 85 and above, 41%, 80 and above, 55%, 75 and above, 67%, 70 and above, 76%. So it's essentially the massively significant majority is 50 and over.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't really, it's like a fairly comfortable sliding scale downwards from there.
So what is it over 60?
Over 60, 88%, 150,000 people. No.
And
No. Yeah. Sorry. Yes. So over 60, 150,000 people were over 60 who died last year.
let's not get over the number of people over 100.
Yeah, I know, right?
I don't know anyone who's ever been over 100.
No. Well, because they're dead.
Yeah, fair. But I don't know anyone who's lived to be over 100.
No.
My parents were quite long-lived, and they were like 91.
That's also possibly because you're not hanging around the right circles.
That's true.
I don't really hang around with people who are 100.
I can't believe there are that many people over 100 who died in a year.
So now you're making me question my figures, but no.
I believe you. I'm sure there are that many people over 100, but
not
it's
anymore.
But there are people who take their place.
Yeah, true. It's interesting though. It's when you look at the number of people who so from 50 to 54, 4,100 people. But then when you jump to 75 to 79, 19,000, 80 to 84, 25,000, 85 to 89, 28,000, 90 to 94, 26,000. And then I'm assuming it's because you've got a less of a sample size, it gets less. 95 to 99, 12,000, 100.
You're burying the lead here, though. You're burying the lead because you keep on glossing over the 60 to whatever it is, the age bracket.
So 60 to 64, 8,296, which it then jumps up from 65 to 69, 11,235.
Okay.
So between 60 and 70 is nearly 20,000.
What does it give you percentage-wise? So can you see that in your statistics?
I don't know. So 60 to 64 is percentage of people who died.
Mm-hmm.
Between 50 and 60 was 6%.
Right.
Between 60 and 70 is 12%.
Right. That's unsettlingly high.
If you're between 60 and 69, 90,000 people died last year. And then it kind of and then it increases. 50 to 54, 2%, 55 to 59, 4%, 60 to 64, 5%, 65 to 69 jumps up to 7%, 70 to 74 is 9%, 75 to 79, 12%, 84, 15%, 85 to 89, 17%, 90 to 94, 15%. So it's interesting that it kind of grows to 89 and then starts to taper off and then goes 15, 7, 1. The 90, 94, 95, 99, 100 plus.
Yeah, but you can understand that. I mean, I was trying to add up those things in my heads as heads. My heads. How many heads do I have? I was trying to add those things up in my head as you were saying them, and I'm thinking, hold on, does this add up to 100? What's this adding up to? It seems like a lot.
No, because we haven't covered everything from 0 to 49.
No, but I'm thinking it was saying that we're adding up a lot more than even 100. It was over 100. It wasn't, but I'm just my
Right.
bad maths.
Well, no, it technically adds up to 94, which is the percentage from 50 of people who've died over 50.
Okay. Can I take you off that? I would like to finish with where life ends. Life ends.
No, let's have a look to see if there's any more interesting stats. Australia's got the 6th highest life expectancy globally.
What is the life expectancy?
Males and females both come in at number 6. So life expectancy.
Well, how many?
For males,
what age?
81.2.
Mm-hmm.
And females 85.3.
Okay.
Now, if you want to, if you're slightly competitive,
Mm-hmm.
number 1 for males is Switzerland. So it's interesting. Here's what I find interesting. I'll give you the top 5.
I saw that yodeling.
I give you the top 5 of both because, with the exception of 2 countries that don't match. No, 3.
Okay.
Sorry. No, with the exception of all the countries, they all match. Anyway, for men, from 1 to 6, and the life expectancy for the number 1, which is Switzerland, is 81.9 years.
Right.
Number 6 is Australia, 81.2 years.
Okay.
So it's like an extra 6 months and a bit for us, if you're in Switzerland. So Switzerland, Iceland, Norway, Japan, Sweden, Australia.
Okay.
Females. The number 1 life expectancy is Japan, 87.7 years.
Okay.
Number 6, Australia, 85.3. So there's a bigger gap there already.
Big difference there. What's the Japanese age for men?
81.6.
Because they worked themselves to an early death.
Hey?
They worked themselves to an early death.
Possibly. So for female life expectancy in order is Japan, Korea, Spain, Switzerland, France, Australia.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. So Switzerland's apparently a good place to live.
Mm-hmm.
Japan's pretty good. No matter what sex you are. If you're female,
Japan has sorry.
If you're female, consider moving to Korea, Spain, or France.
Mm-hmm.
If you're male, consider moving to Iceland, Norway, or Sweden, and picking up an extra 3 or 4 months.
Is that worth the effort, considering Iceland?
Yeah, it seems like a lot of effort to move countries for an extra 6 months worth of life.
Yeah. But I think death is the thing that people fear most. I argue that strongly.
All right, then. Well, fuck you. I'll argue that back. So, because I'm committed and professional.
You should be committed.
And I'm going to let that pass. And make sure that every podcast is well researched and thought through, as is my reputation within the podcasting
fraternity.
Thank you. So in 1973, R.H. Bruskin Associates' American Fears study appeared in the London Sunday Times to say that when they surveyed people, they feared public speaking more than death. Argue that.
Okay, well, clearly I'm not like the majority of those people.
Well, you can. Because in 2012, some other people went, sounds fucking stupid. I'm not sure if that was actually the trigger of why they did it, but...
That might be their research question.
Hi, thanks. We're applying for a PhD research funding grant of $200,000 today. And what's your research based on? Well, the 1973 Bruskin Associates study. That just sounds like fucking bullshit. We'd like to redo it.
Sounds good. Here's your money.
Thanks. So in 2012 they did another study. And they found that given a list of fears, public speaking did come up as a higher ranked fear than death. However, when students were said, pick a top fear, they picked death most often.
What question could they ask you that would make public speaking come before death?
I'm pretty confident that there isn't anybody who's going, John, we'd like you to present at this week's team meeting to 7 of your peers. And John going, fuck, is there a high building that I can open a window as they're plummeting to their doom? Fuck, at least I'm not having to talk in front of the tree.
And that's an excellent segue to what we're going to talk about next, which is what is a good death? You hear people saying, oh, that was a bad death. That was a good death. And I mean, what makes a good death? I think laughing yourself to death is probably a pretty good way of dying. I mean, I'm sure that you laugh to a certain point, then suddenly the truck sits on your chest and you go, oh, fuck, I'm going to die now.
This isn't as funny as I thought.
Yeah. What makes a good death? What would be a good death for you?
Somebody else's. Well, there's the whole thing of like, like he died doing what he loved, surprising tigers.
Well, so you're back to your idea of dying a good death.
And then like the obvious, I want to like the idea of dying in my sleep, like my grandpa not screaming like the passengers in his car. I don't know is my answer to this. I did have a think about it, and I realized that I oddly think about it probably more than it's healthy to. Here's an insight, listeners, into what kind of fucking bizarre world I live in. Like, I don't like the idea of, I don't feel comfortable with the idea that I could just close my eyes and never, it's like that's it, and just never open them again.
Mm.
But I also don't like the idea of going, like lying in bed and going, oh, fuck, I think I'm dying.
Yeah, look, I think, unfortunately, that second one is more the reality.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think dying in your sleep is a pleasant fiction we tell ourselves. Oh, he died in his sleep. He didn't even know it was coming. If you died in your sleep, it sounds peaceful. Everyone wants to be peaceful. So to die peacefully sounds great. Not you wake up in the middle of the night with that truck sitting on your chest I was talking about earlier, going, oh, fuck, I think I'm going to die. And then lying in bed. So dying in your bed is different to dying in your sleep, I think is pretty fair to say. But I think dying in your bed, everyone says he died in his sleep because he was in his bed when he died.
Well, unless you're rooting.
He was doing what he loved.
I'd be happy with that, actually. If for no other reason to be like, just to imagine how awkward it would be at the funeral, whoever's giving the eulogy. So there's a comedy special on Netflix at the moment by Kevin Smith, who's Silent Bob of Jay and Silent Bob. And it's the stand-up special that he did where he had this massive Widowmaker heart attack afterward. Like when you watch it, you would never pick that there was anything wrong with him. Neither did he. And it was only the fact that like he went off stage, his makeup artist was kind of wiping his makeup off and went, your neck is freezing, but your face is boiling. There's something wrong. We need to call an ambulance. And then I think he like passed out and woke up in hospital where they said, if your makeup person hadn't called an ambulance, then because it was like a 97% blockage or something, one of those ones. So that's kind of an example, I think, of he wouldn't have known about it. I know somebody who worked in old people's homes who said like she'd been literally in the middle of conversations with people when they died, which I said to myself, yeah, I know, it's because you're really boring. No, that's not true. She's not boring at all. She said like 1 second they were there and then the next second they were not. And I remember my dad telling me his grandfather, they were sitting around in just like in the lounge room and his grandfather was talking or something. And then someone said, oh, Granddad, you're spilling your tea, because he had a cup of tea in his hand because he was English. 1 second he was there and then the next second he wasn't.
That kind of sounds good to me.
Well, it depends on what they were talking about, because I'd be going, oh, fuck, I missed it.
Yeah. Look, I think we started talking about what's a good death and what's a bad death. To me, a good death is one that doesn't cause you pain and happens very quickly. That's how I would feel. And now a word from our sponsor. After the fall of Rome, Europe descended into the so-called Dark Ages. But classical learning was kept alive in the Islamic world. Explorers sailed the seas, discovering new worlds. The Renaissance and the scientific revolution were a triumph of collective learning, and the seeds of the modern world were sown. But the light bulb moments were just beginning. Light bulb moments in human history, from peasants to periwigs, is available now. And Book One's available on audiobook from Spotify or Audible. So back to where we were talking about what's a good death. A good death is considered to be dying quickly, being in control, having loved ones around, resolving the unfinished business, knowing you've lived a long and fulfilling life, all that kind of stuff. Okay, what's a bad death? Now, bad deaths are...
Well, sorry, the other thing that wasn't on that list was like saving someone else or doing something
while you die. So you're sacrificing yourself to save someone else.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and not necessarily like I don't know whether I would be able to go, I'll sacrifice myself because I know I'm going to die to save someone else. But the idea of I did something to save someone else, and
okay, that's pretty fair. That is heroic. To die a heroic death would be a good death, I think.
Yeah, or getting shot because you got caught sleeping with 3 women.
I have this weird fantasy.
I'm not sure I want to.
Nothing to do with sleep with 3 women.
This is unfortunate. It was an unfortunate segue.
This weird fantasy of, because you hear about all these sort of school shootings, obviously American school shootings, but we often 2 or 3 times a year we do lockdown drills and we do fire drills. Now, my thing is like, if I was faced with the situation where I could save children by sacrificing myself, would I? No, seriously, I think this
depends on who it was.
That's fair, but I think I come down on the side of I would.
Right.
And I mean, not to sound heroic, but I think I would try. I wouldn't just hide behind my desk in the corner going, "Oh fuck, I hope he doesn't see me."
Yeah, whereas I'd probably be jumping out in front of him going, that one.
Yeah. So, I don't know in reality whether I would do that, but it's this kind of thing that comes up every time we have a lockdown drill or something. It is something that crosses my mind, and I think I'd do it. So bad deaths. So things that are traumatic, violent, or drawn out, definitely. Okay. Graphic, undignified, or disease with bodily deterioration, yeah, fair enough. Now, this is one I'm not so on board with. Dying alone, isolated from family and social ties.
The idea of dying alone I find quite concerning and disturbing, and which ties into things like choking when there's no one else here.
Oh, yeah, I've thought that too, because obviously I'm alone a lot. And I actually, the only time I've ever choked, I was at a pub and I was with a friend of mine. And so I tried to swallow and it didn't go down. I clearly hadn't chewed enough. Okay. So I'm sitting at the table and I'm going, oh, there's something in my throat. Oh, I can't breathe because it had gone down the wrong way. And I stood up and I walked towards the bathroom thinking, I don't know what I was thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the meantime, the person I was with was going, are you okay? What's wrong? What's wrong? And she was trying to help me. But I wasn't listening to anything she was saying. I was following my own thing. And I got to a point and I went, this is going to come up. And I looked at the nearest place, which was a pot plant. And I went and coughed it all up into a pot plant in the corner. And then went and sat down and ate the rest of my dinner. But
and so did you have a second date?
Yes. Well, it wasn't the first date. But back to what you're saying, I've considered what would happen. Okay, I solved that problem myself. But there are times when I go, what if that happened and I couldn't solve it? I'm sitting here alone, which I am 50% of the time, at least. And that's That thought's scary.
I do know that you can Heimlich maneuver yourself on the edge of a chair, on the back of a chair.
Now, how do you do that? Tell me how. Quick. So share with our listeners so they could all save themselves.
So there's actually a Psycho Stick song that's about choking that actually uses the legitimate "this is what you do if somebody's choking" instructions, which I think is called Choking Hazard. Shout out to Psycho Stick. Yeah, so you kind of you like throw yourself against the back of the chair and get yourself in the just under the where your stomach is, just under your sternum.
Okay,
And
so
it works the same as somebody doing the Heimlich maneuver from the back.
Okay, well, that sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah.
You may have saved a life.
Yeah, if I'm ever in a situation where I'm choking and that doesn't work, then I'll probably
You'll die.
Well, I'm thinking I'll be tossing up whether I go, do I stab myself? Which is worse?
You won't have time.
He stabbed himself, or he was stupid enough that he didn't understand how to chew food.
Well, look, I can tell you, because when I was a kid, probably about 6 or 7, I choked as well. And clearly, it's happened twice in my life, so I must have an issue with it. But I choked and I passed out really quickly.
Yeah.
Now, this is the thing, going back to our list of things for a bad death, and this is probably my biggest fear ever, is mental incapacitation, losing your sense of self. The worst thing that could happen to me is that, and then I wouldn't be aware of it, which is even worse, that I get Alzheimer's and that I live for years and years and years and years and cause my family drama. That to me is the absolute worst case scenario. I'd rather just fucking die right now. Big podcast.
And so are the people who are listening. I'm kind of with you on that one. You don't hear that you've got Alzheimer's once. You hear it multiple times. Which I thought that's something to look forward to. But in some ways, I like the idea of it because I don't know. For the most part, I don't know, which again is quite similar to the majority of the way I live my life. But also my kind of thing would be, so on the off chance that anybody who has any interest in me is listening to this, take this as if I've got Alzheimer's, stick me in a fucking home somewhere and consider me dead. Like for the 15 minutes every 6 months that I go, I haven't seen my kids for a while. It doesn't matter. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, and that seems fair because dragging people in and just the thought of any of my kids coming to me and saying, "Hi, Dad," and me going, "Who are you?"
I've got a shit ton more stuff. So my other thing is like determining a good or a bad way to die. It's like, what if you're a masochist?
Okay, fair. In which case, look at the bad ways to die and do them.
Are they good?
Yeah. Traumatic draw that. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay. Graphic,
I've never
undignified.
come so hard in my life.
Yeah. Dying alone, isolated, awesome. Mental incapacitation, can't get enough of it. Fear and anxiety and unresolved matters, awesome. Okay, so we're getting back to the question that follows on after all that other morbid stuff. Why are some deaths more tragic than others? Now, because some deaths are blessed, like, he lived a good life and it was expected and all that kind of stuff. And some of them are like, oh my God, I can't believe it. So why are some tragic and some not?
I actually reckon it's probably more what does the person mean to someone? So there'd be people who would go, the death of Nelson Mandela was a massive tragedy. And there would be people who would go, the death of Nelson Mandela is whatever. It means nothing. I think it's summed up best by Marilyn Manson.
Okay.
So, as some of you may remember from the episode 1,
some very, very few of you, I imagine, but anyway, go for it.
Is that I like long walks in the park, competitive duck herding, and heavy metal music.
And you like big butts, and you cannot lie.
There's a line in one of his songs. The line is, the death of one is a tragedy, but the death of millions is just a statistic.
That's deep.
It is. It's also surprisingly difficult to say. So it's impressive that he can do that as a justice statistic. Is actually quite hard to say. Try that, Viv. If you're listening at home, try that. Justice statistic.
Take 54.
Well, let's hear you do it. The death of millions is just a statistic. Fucking hell.
I'm not saying it's easy. The death of millions is just a statistic.
See? It's much harder than you think.
Just a statistic. Yeah, okay, fair enough. I hear you.
I've got a significant... I got a lot of respect for him previously. I've got an even more respect for him that he can manage to get that out. But it's also a quite accurate statement, is that if you hear on the news that one person's died, yeah, yes, but if it's, 1,000 or 1 million, it's just a... Fucking hell.
Just a statistic. But, I mean, I think the other thing, and we kind of talked about this earlier when we were discussing the episode, is it is very much one of those things where you hear about a ferry accident in the Philippines and you go, that's terrible when 200 people die. But when you find out there were 2 Australians on there, you go, oh my God, 2 Australians died. And it's like, why the relativity? Why is it different? Why do we feel different? Okay.
You identify more with somebody who's from the same country rather than people who are from a different country, not from a racism point of view. I think if you said 100 people died, 2 of them were gingers, that would be more meaningful to you than it would be to me. But if they said, and 2 of them were anxious and drank too much, that would be that would be more of more interest to me than the other 98. So I think it's who you identify.
Yeah, that seems fair. Thank you for making me feel less bad about that.
I think it's like when you get into that sort of stuff, it's also falls into the theory of big numbers for things like the Holocaust, where people, one of the reasons why we've got Holocaust deniers, aside from the fact they're massive cockheads, is just the concept of going that they systematically killed 6 million people. It's such a huge number, we can't actually process it. And so once it gets over, and I don't know what the cutoff point is, but there is a certain point where the human brain just goes, I can't, that doesn't make any sense to me. I can't deal with it. Like the tsunamis in Japan and in Thailand, going, I can't imagine that many people dying, but I can imagine 4 Australians dying.
Okay.
So it kind of makes sense from a psychological point of view of how we can process it. Yeah,
that's concerning.
That was quite weird. So how does that relate to... Oh, yes. So that ties back to the death of one is a tragedy. The death of millions is just a statistic.
Thank you. I'm glad you said that.
All right. I think either I can start to poke my eyes out with pencils, or we can wrap it up for this episode.
Yeah, that's definitely enough death for one episode.
Yes, and we can follow this up with more death
more often.
And for listeners who are going, well, that seemed to be a pretty slick 40-odd minutes of death talk. In reality, we're up to about day 7 of recording that is fucking podcast.
But so far, we've covered a few big topics. We've talked about my existential crisis at turning 60. We've talked about death statistics. We've talked about what constitutes a good death. And we've talked about people's greatest fears, which included wanting to jump off a tall building rather than actually do a speech.
Yes, I'll put my little Google to use and see if I can find out if there has actually been a case of anybody preferring to be dead than to talk at a team meeting.
So just so you're clear, it's not the size of your Google, CJ, that counts.
I know, it's whether it can make people Yahoo.
Yahoo!
Not you. I've seen your existential angst.
So until next time, say goodbye, CJ.
Say goodbye, CJ. No. What? Jesus Christ. See, this is what this fucking episode's done to me. I need a beer. Hey, remember that time I wrote that book called Colin Calls the Help Desk?
How could I forget? You talk about it all the bloody time.
Well, guess what? I'm not going to talk about it anymore. Well, not too
Oh,
much.
thank God for that.
Because
Uh-oh.
Colin Calls the Help Desk 2 is available. It's not just called Colin Calls the Help Desk 2 because that'd be boring. It was originally Colin Calls the Help Desk Electric Boogaloo. That was taken. Then I went for Colin Calls the Help Desk Cruise Control.
Mm.
I didn't think anybody would be interested in that. It took a weird turn and went to Colin Calls the Help Desk Judgment Day.
I'm trying to think of an appropriate Schwarzenegger quote for Colin. I can't think of one.
I'll be back.
Come with me if you want to give.
This is a much better story than what I've written. No, seriously though, it's called Colin Doesn't Call the Help Desk.
Okay, well, there's progress there.
Yeah, it's a clever play on words. One of his biggest concerns in this book is, again, he's eager to add value and lean in, and he wants to know the answer to the question, does he still need to buy lunch after he attends the workshop to grab the low-hanging fruit? So this one's different to the first one in that it's better and readable. It's
that's also shows progress.
It's actually I will say, because for all the people who are going, oh fuck, that sounds like a shit house book, even the guy who wrote it doesn't like it. It is actually selling quite well. I'm not making enough money to retire, but it's I'm quite happy with how many people are buying it and reading it.
Well, that's a good thing.
Anyway, this one is Colin Doesn't Call the Help Desk. The Help Desk Strikes Back has 3 stories in it because they're a bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is about planning, and it's kind of time to do the annual business plan, and they decide to get Agile involved in it.
Okay. Oh, that doesn't sound good.
So essentially, Graham is unconvinced when Agile coach Linda suggests that as part of developing the customer requirements, his key stakeholders should be customers. Colin offers to help him source information from the reporting team, but can he learn enough about data analysis to raise the right request before the requirements are due?
Dun, dun, dun.
The answer is probably, but he does take a weird side turn on he goes out and buys a life jacket because he's concerned he has to swim in the data lake. Then in story number 2, about the annual culture survey. So the annual culture survey results were announced, and Bob discovers that he scored badly in the area of trust. So he pulls the team together and insists that they own up to the anonymous comments that they've made about him. Meanwhile, Colin's excited to have the chance to help tackle the biggest issue that's been raised, but he's not sure that just having a series of company-wide workshops will be enough to identify why people think they spend too much time in meetings. And then finally, the company decides it's time to go flexi-desking because they're keeping up with the times. So when the company decides to increase employee productivity and engagement by introducing flexi-desking, Colin's excited to discover how setting up at a new desk, then packing everything away each day can increase his efficiency.
That's a really good question, Colin.
But when they discover that there's actually not enough desks to go around anymore, Bob is finally forced to allow the team to work from home. Colin's concerned, can he still achieve his efficiency gains without being able to change desks again tomorrow? Join Colin the Koala in his second book of hilarious, relatable, and unfortunately realistic business adventures.
Nice.
Available on Amazon in paperback, Kindleback, soon to be hardback, and the not very well selling Nickelback.